Good morning to our viewers once again. And you have just heard it from my colleague, Senator David Nakid. And based on what he have just said, there's one big question to the viewing public. And that question is, can this country survive the seeping cancer, which is the PNM, which is the ruling government? Because when you look at the reality, and when we observe the truth is this cancer has taken over this country. This cancer has taken over this country in every facet of endeavors with negativity. My friends joining us, it seems that the criminal situation in Trinidad and Tobago is a ghost operation, whereby no one can be found to these wanton, senseless, and mindless shooting of children in recent times. And I want to take this opportunity on behalf of the UNC to offer, of course, our sincere condolences to the bereaved families of all of those innocent children murdered. And at this juncture, I want to take the opportunity to highlight the gruesome murders, and you've heard it from my colleague, of 11-year-old Ezekiel Paria, killed by a stray bullet. Murders of mother and daughter killed in their home. And whilst this mayhem continues, what is being done to at least protect the children who it seems to have become collateral damage? And I want you to remember this. Do you remember the late Patrick Manning when he spoke on behalf of the PNM? Do you remember the PNM's take on collateral damage? And I want to remind you, how can leopards change their spots? The PNM has always had an excuse for crime, where they shrug off murders. And we want to ask the PNM, is this the same position they hold today as they did under Patrick Manning, where it seems that our children have become collateral damage in this country when it comes to the criminal situation? Just yesterday, because I want to tell you, the PNM is not concerned about crime, they are concerned about winning elections. Just yesterday, this shameless PNM government started electioneering with a youth caravan at African grounds in Enterprise. And you know what is quite ironic, citizens? Is that that very same African ground, 9-year-old Jamal Morris was needlessly murdered while simply enjoying a football game. You recall this?
Yeah.
I recall standing on platforms, these very same press conferences on Sundays, mentioning how many more Jamal Morris we must have. So Jamal Morris, a few days ago, Ezekiel Paria, days before that, children. What will happen tomorrow? What will happen tomorrow with our children, and what will the PNM do? And I want you to remember, subsequent to Jamal's murder, the residents petitioned, and I joined them, the government. They would have petitioned the government to establish a police post at that very same African grounds where they were at yesterday. And earlier, I too penned a letter to the Minister of National Security to date, which he has never responded to, Mr. Fitzgerald Hines, pleading for part of the community center which exists at that ground, African ground, to be converted to a police post. Yet to date, nada, nothing, zilch, nothing for the people of Enterprise. But yesterday you went there. After years of not giving anything to Enterprise, you have started your campaign yesterday. Jamal Morris died. The citizens, the residents asked for a police post, nothing. Today we have Ezekiel Paria. What will happen tomorrow? What is the future of our children under this government? And friends, yet, this regime chooses to conduct activities within communities hoping to win elections. And we must remember, election is close. And I want to say to the government to stop using the youth to catapult yourself back into office. Because, and you must ask yourselves, can you trust this government? Yesterday, they are using youth caravans to come into enterprise. Persons falling like flies, not just in enterprise, throughout this country. And you are not doing anything about it. Yesterday, whilst they are on African ground, you know what happened? In another part of enterprise? At the Das Trace Homework Center, Mr. Ralston was shot. He didn't die, luckily. He's hospitalized currently. But you know what I am told when I contacted my friends in that area? I am told, thank God, netball practice was cancelled for yesterday. Else children would have been at that location. And I want us to look at the Express editorial today. I'm telling you about a homework center here at this point where the president of a youth empowerment center was shot yesterday. And today, the Express editorial, this then, it was Trinidad, is what Trinidad has become. A place where children cannot go to school or play without incurring the risk of being killed. What if children were practicing for netball at that location, at the Das Trace Homework Center, located at Das Trace Recreational Ground yesterday? Our children are at risk, and this government needs to protect our children. Today I want to ask the government, what measures are they putting in place for the children who have lost parents arising from crimes? The government must protect our children and stop the lip service. Every time something happens, you run on a platform to say $100 million for crime. Community centers need rules, etc. But what happens after a few months? Recurring problems. Many children today, and I'm sure the citizens will agree with me, many children today are suffering from the lack of basics and abuse without any hope or relief. And I want to tell you, conversations with social workers who have to interact with these affected children reveal that at most times they are without resources, they are without laws, and they are without systems to have any meaningful or significant impact. And therefore, I want to use this forum, just as my colleague, alongside my colleague, because we are fighting for the same cause, to call upon the government to get serious about providing measures of savior. Because citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, we are at a position now where we have to provide measures of savior. It is bad, it is horrible, it is terrible. And our children, they are just sitting there with the hope for something to be done. And they are asking themselves, is this what I am growing up into? What will happen when I'm an adult? So we call upon the government to get serious about providing measures of savior. Get serious about providing youth with activities that encourage positive youth development. Because this will allow for activities such as at-risk youths ranging from sports, recreational, cultural, and educational opportunities. Because friends, you have sporting groups, Senator, and those joining us in at-risk communities who are doing barbecues to raise funding, to go to tournaments where they are getting opportunities outside of Trinidad, to build a career, to come out of criminal situations, criminal environments, and they have to be suffering, begging this government for assistance. And when they don't get the assistance, they have to engage in barbecue fundraisers, begging for a table to rest the boxes on to sell, begging for a tent, begging for chairs for these fundraising activities, some bread, some chicken. And this is the reality. We call on the government to get serious about providing measures of savior when it comes to training and opportunities for youth development. Allow these youths to have improved skills and competencies. We sit in JSCs, and when you ask about the success levels, you know what's happening? Youths are getting opportunities, yes, to get a certificate. Not all youths, because you have cut in funding. They cannot help everyone, they can only help some. When you get the certificate, you go home. What happens after that? These young people are not being absorbed into any system where they can experience growth and actually use the skill or the skill set which they acquire from these certificates or programs. So get serious. We are in a position to provide measures of savior for our young people. The government must get serious about providing measures of savior when it comes to community centers, providing support for community centers to facilitate educational, vocational, rehabilitation, and mental health modules. Ladies and gentlemen, since May 2023, the Prime Minister ordered the Minister of Sports and Community Development to create rules and have rules made for community centers. Where are these rules for these community centers? We are in a position where you have one man and one woman controlling community centers.
Correct.
In at-risk communities where these young people do not have the opportunity to even enter these community centers. The Prime Minister spoke. Where's the Minister of Sport and Community Development? What is happening with these community centers? Where are the rules so that these programs can take place in these community centers and we can help our youths right within their own communities? The government must again get serious about providing measures of savior in terms of coordinating state programs where we are able to enable improved environment and overall positive development for at-risk youths. I want to ask, what has happened to this all-of-government approach? It has collapsed. I wonder if it was ever in existence. Because we can clearly see that there's a lack of coordination with the Office of the Prime Minister, the Minister of Social Development, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Local Government, and the Ministry of National Security. My colleague said it right. What else would the Prime Minister sit and hear about the Minister of National Security? The people put you there. The people do not want the Minister of National Security that you have given to them. What are you going to do next? When will you remove him? When will you provide hope for the citizens that someone will come and actually work for the citizens as it relates to safety and security? The central government, and I'm relating here to the all-of-government approach, they should be working with the local government authorities who are closer with the communities. And they are, of course, in a better able position to dispense social services programs. The country cannot wait for local government reform for this to happen. We have heard it. Local government reform will fix the problems. Laws coming to Parliament will fix the problems, and nothing is being fixed. We have the social delivery system. And I want to touch on this a little bit. The social services delivery system is too cumbersome, and it is destroying the psychological holiness of these poor and vulnerable applicants. Today, I publicly call on the Minister of Social Development and Family Services to really simplify and humanize the social services system. It is really damaging to the psyche of the nation's poor. Every minute you have to run back and forth with documents some of these people don't even know about. And it is really, really, really messing with the psyche of the vulnerable. And I'm sure, and I want to make it a little simpler in terms of what I'm explaining. We can all attest to this, because we all remember the utter horror, chaos, and bungling that was the temporary food card initiative for Christmas in December 2023. And to date, you know what? You have no one from the government with the decency to explain to the population or far less apologize for what took place for Christmas. And that is just a little snippet of how difficult, how problematic the social services delivery system is in this country. And we call on the government to purport some form of care to our citizens. And I want to alert the population to the established fact, just like my colleague did, that the Child Affairs Unit, which is under the remit of the Office of the Prime Minister, and therefore given what obtains at present, the Prime Minister must immediately step in. No more Ezekiel Paria, no more Jamal Morris. The Prime Minister must immediately step in and act with decisiveness. And what should be the first incentive is the establishment of a Children of Crime Fund. And I repeat, what should be the first incentive by the Prime Minister in the fight against crime is the establishment of a Children of Crime Fund. And this fund should be directed to those children who are vulnerable and may have fallen through the cracks. You would have heard from the opposition leader recently unveiling anti-crime plans, calling for a crime fund for those children who would have lost parents due to criminal activities. And it is common knowledge that the Prime Minister can direct the Finance Minister to avail funds to any project of his desire. Because you also, on a platform, he announced 100 million for crime. Therefore, why can't he at least stand and direct some funds towards children affected by crime, or even a separate sum to be advanced for children affected by crime? The Prime Minister can summon inaction monies when he wants to, because we have seen him saying that the Minister of Finance will make these monies available for the fight against crime. Well, we call on the Prime Minister to immediately put in place the first incentive, establish the Children of Crime Fund. And finally, I call upon the nation to join us, because we are fighting this fight, to represent the interests of those children affected by crime by demanding, use your platforms. Don't let them tell you how to use your platforms. Demand that this government immediately establish a fund to assist those affected. And I want to tell you, rest assured, we have proper plans being unveiled. You are hearing it at our anti-crime talks. You are hearing it on our various platforms, which we utilize to meet with you, to speak to you. Rest assured that a UNC government would earnestly, on assumption of office, explore these initiatives. And of course, other initiatives to ensure your safety. This government is not concerned about you, and that's the truth. The truth is our children are dying. The truth is, where are our ministers in the fight against crime? The all of government approach has collapsed. The PNM is now concerned with fighting elections and hoping to grip those persons in at-risk communities rather than actually help them and bring them out of a life of crime or an environment of crime. So friends, we call on the government to act. We ask you to stand with us and continue this journey with us in the fight against crime. You have heard it from my colleague and I here today at our weekly media briefing. We want to thank you for joining us, and at this time we would open up for any questions or so that may have come from the public or our media friends present here with us.
Yes, I have a question here from the media for MP Mohit. You mentioned the child shot in African grounds last year and the PNM bringing a caravan this year. Was there any increase in police presence or any other such action taken after that tragedy last year?
Thank you very much for that question, because since last year and even before that, I am pleading, begging for more resources for the police service, for more patrols. I don't know if you recall, recently the Minister of National Security would have given his own statistics that home invasions in Cunupia are on the rise. And following that, we have also called as well, Cunupia, very close to Enterprise, one community, I must say, calling for increased police presence, increased amounts of resources for Central Division. And we have not had any responses. The police are still struggling to provide police patrols. The residents and citizens are still struggling when they contact the police to get the police to their sites or locations of criminal activities because of lack of resources. So we still call on the government to provide the resources. We call on the Rip Van Winkle, Minister Hines, to wake up and provide the resources to Central Division so that citizens can breathe some sigh of relief and that deterrent can be provided in terms of police patrols.
I have a question for Senator Nackett as well.